Welcome to Comet Computer Private Limited, e-learning program of implementing and administering networking technologies. We are discussing about VLAN technologies. In that, we are going to see about configuring VLANs in the switch. So now we are taking a simulation of having multiple switch and connected with the router on a stick, the setup, and we are also having direct connections with the router. So this is a simple setup we have. So configuring VLAN in the switch. So we'll follow the basic configurations. We'll have to assign the host name. From the scratch, I'm doing it. So taking it from the host name, and we are going to create some sample VLANs. Let it be like VLAN space 10. So the command used for creating VLAN is VLAN itself. So there is nothing much big. So this is the L2 VLAN. Okay, so we have seen the other setup which is for L3 VLAN. So all these things are L2 VLAN. So now for creating VLAN number, that's a command, and we have to give the name. So for the VLAN, what is the name we are going to have? AWS. So VLAN 11, Azure, VLAN 12, CCNA, something like that. And copy the command. So understanding the basics of VLAN, so we can have maximum of 4094 VLANs. It depends on the switch. Some switches can support about 9000 also, but generally this supports 4094 VLANs. So we can have n number of VLANs based on the business requirement. So in real time, we can create up to 1001 VLANs. We cannot use the VLAN 1, VLAN 1002 to 1005. So these are all reserved. Okay, VLAN 1 is a default VLAN in all the switch. Okay, just by restarting the switch operations, all the ports will be assigned with VLAN 1. So if at all you are taking the system to different requirement, you have to assign the project specific VLAN to the particular port that we are going to see now. So what we have done, we have created three VLANs based on the project requirement. One is AWS, one is Azure, and other is CCNA. So I have three projects available with me, so I have three VLANs. VLAN numbers above 1005 are called extended VLANs. Okay, so up to 1001 we are okay, normal VLANs. After 1005 it will be extended VLANs. We have to enable the VTP, that is VLAN trunking protocol, in transparent mode to use the VLAN. So we should be in the transparent mode. So again, we are creating some of the other VLANs, naming it. Okay, so AWS Azure and 100 and show VLAN. If you put show VLAN, you will get to know you have the numbers right. One which is assigned with all the ports. VLAN 1 is assigned with all the ports, and we are also able to see what are the VLANs available here: 100, 101, 102, and it is active. VLANs are enabled and active. And 1002, I said from 1001 to 1005 we cannot use. This is the reason. So these VLANs are already blocked for standard operations. So we cannot use that VLAN for our own purpose. Show interface trunk. So in any switch, if you want to forward the traffic to other switch, it should be transferred via trunk port. So we will not use data port. For uplink operations, uplink connections, we'll be using a trunk port. So all the switch will be having the trunk port. If you don't have it, you have to make one port as a trunk port, and you have to run the command for making this switches with the trunk port. So without trunk port, you will not be able to connect one switch with other switch. So this is very important. Assigning switch ports to VLAN, you have n number of ports available. So say 48 ports or 64 ports, whatever it is. So you have to log in to the individual port and assign the VLANs. So for that, you can get into the interface mode and switch port mode. You have to type access. Okay, so trunk means for trunk port we can take trunk, but normally we have to type access. Switch port mode access only. So then we have to assign the VLAN to the um, particular port. Switch port mode access. So switch port mode, you have access mode, interactive, non-negotiate mode, port security, priority, protected, all the other options are available. So what we do in the particular port, we assign switch port access VLAN 100. I'm assigning VLAN 100 for that switch port and getting into other port, interface FU05. switch port mode access. Okay, switch port access is VLAN is 101. So in the same way, we are assigning the other interface also. Interface, we are getting to the interface switch port. We are making that port assigned with the interface VLAN, whatever VLAN we have. So this port automatically moves towards the VLAN. This is the L2 VLAN. So if I put show VLAN, you can see earlier things, all the ports are assigned to VLAN 1, which is a default port. Now what you are seeing, first port, the first Ethernet port assigned to VLAN 100, Comet. The fifth port is assigned with VLAN 101 and Azure. The 10th port is assigned to VLAN 102. Likewise, we can assign multiple systems to multiple ports. In the sense, one system to one port only, but we can use a group command, that is range command, to make all the group of ports to work as a similar. So range command we have seen in other presentation. So how to configure the trunk port? So in case of 2960 switch, we will be using the 802.1 queue for encapsulation. We cannot configure any other encap in the switch. So that is very specific for the particular switch. So how to configure the trunk ports? So get into the interface, type switch port trunk encapsulation, switch port mode trunk. You have to say it is a trunk. So you get automatically assigned. And if I see the interface is as of now. Okay, though the trunk port enabled with the encapsulation, as such, the trunk port itself is not working as of now. So we have to get into the interface and enable the commands. So here show interface gig 1/1/2. I could see the parameters or attributes of um, the particular port. So this is the command output. So modes of operation, we have different modes of operation. One is switch port mode access. For making my port as access port, I have to run this command. Otherwise, the port will not have any functionality. So I'll make one port as a access port. Whichever port you wanted to make, by default, all the ports to work, it should have a access port configuration. Switch port mode access. Switch port mode dynamic auto, for making the traffic automatic. We are configuring the port as a switch port mode dynamic auto. Switch port dynamic desirable. So this one makes the interface actively attempt to convert the link to a trunk link. Normal link to a trunk link. It is converting a normal link to a trunk link. Switch port mode trunk. So this command makes the particular port to trunk port permanently and negotiables to convert the neighboring link into a trunk link. So now it is converting normal link to a trial link, trunk link, and converting the normal port to a trunk port. Switch port non-negotiable. So this prevents interface from generating DTP frames. We need to configure the neighboring switch port as trunk port to establish trunk connections. So we'll have more than one trunk port enabled. So for this kind of requirement, we'll be using the second port. So these are all the modes of operations in the switch. Allow to VLAN in trunk port. By default, you can allow all the VLANs, but the traffic will be more if you allow all the VLANs. So what we used to do, we used to restrict the VLANs via the trunk port. So I'll mention in what all the VLANs it should allow as per the requirement. Okay, so not all VLANs are not specific to any VLANs. Inter-VLAN routing. Since we are creating multiple VLANs in a switch, in a group of switches, so each VLAN cannot communicate. Okay, so whether it is L2 or L3 VLAN, it will not be communicating with each other network. Okay, so we need to enable the inter-VLAN routing with the help of router or any other L3 device. Then only the inter-VLAN routing will be able to communicate successfully. Both the VLANs will be able to communicate successfully. So for that, we'll be using a ISL, which is a Cisco proprietary protocol for frame tagging. So this is going to perform the activity of frame tagging and proprietary of Cisco protocol. So it supports up to 1000 VLANs and can be used over fast Ethernet and Gigabit Ethernet link only. So it can support inter-VLAN routing, and ISL protocol will support 1000 VLANs. Okay, so we can have more number of VLANs connected to it. Switch 1 has two VLANs, no, so we have two different subnets. If we want to communicate between these VLANs, we'll have to use a device that can do routing. So it can be a L3 router, L3 switch or a router. So that will help you to connect and configure the switching and enable the VLAN for pinging and other data communication. Here in this example, we are going to use the router for carrying out the operation. We need to create the access to both the VLAN. So create 802.1q trunk between the switch and router. So configure the interface gig 0/1 as trunk port. So we have to follow these instructions so that we can successfully run the program. So switch side, we have to follow these configurations. Interface, get into the interface, switch port mode trunk encapsulation. So encapsulate the trunk port with the .1q and just mention it switch mode trunk and allow the VLANs. Router side configurations. What are the things you have to do it in the router side? Show IP route. You are getting both the network as a connected route. So host side configurations. We are mentioning all these things. Different network. Host 1 is 20.1, host 2 is 20.10.1, and host 2 is 20.1. So you can verify the configurations once you establish the communication, verify the configuration. So you can see the ping reply from the one system to other system. So these are the common commands what we created. So by running the show run command, you can find out in the switch and find out in the router. And I'm just showing only the proper commands from the interface level. Okay, not more than that. So we have come to the configuration of L2 switch. Thank you very much.